this event. We have checked with Lieutenant General Hooper's legal team about recording. There are several FAOs that could not be here with us today, but would like to listen to this afterwards. So I do plan on recording this and posting it to our LinkedIn page and having it available for any FAOs that cannot be here today. That said, Chatham House rules, this won't be used for any kind of advertising purposes or for the media. This is internal for FAOs. Few admin remarks from the FAO Association. One of our last distinguished speakers was Major General Fontes, and one of the things that you all asked her for was a reading list of best books for FAOs. She provided that to us, and I hung it on our LinkedIn page. So if you didn't see it, go back and check our LinkedIn page for the complete list of FAO recommended books from Major General Fontes. We also hung on our LinkedIn page our top FAO movies, which you all provided to us, input on the best movies. Surprise, surprise, Lawrence of Arabia was voted the #1 best FAO movie out there. So as we continue to wave through this COVID situation, we're stuck at home a lot, take a look at the suggested FAO movies. Other things, the FAO store is up and running on our FAO website. So if you want any good FAO gear, just go take a look at the website and you can order anything on there if you want. Another amazing, great announcement is I want to welcome the Korea chapter to the Foreign Area Officer Association. Major Kim out there in Korea is the president of the FAO Association chapter in Korea that they recently stood up this month. You don't have to be in Korea in order to be a part of that chapter. So those of you that are interested in the Korean Peninsula or that area, feel free to join that particular chapter of the FAO Association for more Korea-specific events and announcements. So congratulations to Major Kim and all of those FAOs out there. The online journal is also continuing to go very strong. Just this month, we had 3 more of you all FAOs join the editorial board, 1 Air Force, 1 Marine, and 1 Army field grade officer all joined the editorial board, and we're continuing to get a lot of really great articles. But I want to foot stomp that we would love to see more articles from those FAOs who are out in the field right now, hear from some of the countries that none of us really have eyes and ears to other than you that are there. So if you're in one of those situations, please think about writing something for the FAO journal for the rest of us to hear about your unique experiences in the field. Lastly, our black tie event that was scheduled for a couple months ago has been rescheduled for September 24th, but it's pending how this COVID situation continues to progress. So stand by for potential continued delays or going forward with the rescheduled FAO black tie event for September 24th that would be at the Army-Navy Country Club in Washington, D.C. area. Lastly, if you don't already follow us on LinkedIn or are not already a member, go to our webpage, go to our LinkedIn account and follow us so you can continue getting updates from the association. With that, I am going to welcome Lieutenant General Charles Hooper today for our distinguished speaker event. It's a really exciting day for us. He is the most senior FAO in the Army. He is currently the director of the Defense Security Cooperation Agency and has 16 years of experience working in security cooperation and assistance and attaché work. So he comes with a slew of knowledge. He has previously served as the Assistant Army Attaché in China, the Deputy Division Chief for the War Plans Division in the G35, the Director for Taiwan, China, and Mongolia Policy at Department of Secretary of Defense. He's also worked in the International Affairs Division, the G35. He's been an instructor at the Naval Postgraduate School in Monterey. He was the Defense Attaché to China from 2007 to 2009. Then he worked in PACOM in the J5 as the Deputy Director for Strategic Planning. He's been the Director of Strategy Plans and Programs in the J5 for AFRICOM, and he was the Senior Defense Attaché in Cairo. So he has tremendous amount of experience under his belt all over the world. I am thrilled to have him here with us today. Sir, you have 142 participants on the line right now who are really excited to hear about your 30 years of experience in the program. So welcome.
All right, well, thanks, Lauren, for that great introduction. Can you hear me? Just give me a thumbs up. Great. You know, I'm from New Jersey, so whether I was using the internet or not, you should still be able to hear me. In New Jersey, this is how we talk. We're not yelling at you. We just talk really loud. Hey, so listen, Maureen, thanks a lot for that. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank you all for the opportunity to speak here today. Thanks to the Board of Governors, to Kurt, and I always love the opportunity to talk to FAOs. There are no okay, whether you're about FAOs the same way. I want to begin the way I begin all of my talks and presentations these days by hoping that all of you, your families, your colleagues are all remaining safe and healthy. That's the most important thing we can do now, and I want to wish all of you continued safety and good health. So today I want to share a little bit of my thoughts with you on U.S. security cooperation writ large and the role of FAOs, I believe, now and in the future in security cooperation. And I'll spend a little bit of time reflecting on my career over 41 years on active duty. It sounds strange even coming out of my mouth that I've been doing this for 41 years, but it's been a blast, and I do it all over again in a minute. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that, and then I hope to leave some time at the end for questions so that we can have a real genuine dialogue here, and you guys can kind of pepper me with what I think is going on, and I'll be as honest as I can with you about my perspectives on the future of security cooperation and the future of FAOs. So the first thing I want to talk about is a little bit on my perspective on how the United States conducts security cooperation, and I have some pretty strong views on this. So I'll share them with you. Security cooperation directly supports the 3 priority lines in the National Defense Strategy by setting the conditions for effective burden sharing and building enduring alliances and partnerships with our foreign colleagues. And Secretary Mattis used to tell me this is a very simple problem statement. Countries with strong alliance structures survive and thrive, and countries without strong alliance structures don't. And so he was pretty clear in his instructions to me that that my mission was to support line of effort 2 in the National Defense Strategy, which is strengthening alliances and attracting new partners. Now, we don't strengthen alliances and partnerships out of the goodness of our heart, okay? It's not a charitable contribution, and it's not a random act of kindness. We do so because it is in our interest, in the interest of our allies and partners, to band together to address common threats. Now, the Russians and the Chinese, who are our great power competitors, and I'm not going to be euphemistic here, these are our great power competitors. They have perfected the art of what we call transactional diplomacy, okay, in their weapons sales. And that's not what we're all about. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that because I hear a lot about what our strategic competitors are doing. And I want to spend some time talking about what we're doing. Our efforts support each line of effort in the National Defense Strategy, but obviously align most closely with a line of effort 2, which is strengthening alliances and attracting new partners. So it's not just strengthening alliances and partnerships, it's strengthening alliances and attract new partners. And if you guys are interested, I can give you some stories on how we're attracting new partners. Security cooperation for us in the United States is not just about the sale. It's about long-term relationships. And unlike our competitors, we don't have customers. We have partners and allies. Therefore, we must unequivocally embrace the type of a service-oriented and values-based attitude centered on our values, because it is those values that distinguish the uniquely American approach to security cooperation from that of our strategic competitors. Now, in DSCA, we have stated and we abide by 4 principal values that guide how we do business in security cooperation and security assistance. And those values are transparency in everything we do. Everything you want to know about doing business with the United States and foreign military sales is online. And if you go to dsca.mil right now, you'll find the Security Assistance Management Manual that tells you everything you want to know about buying weapons from the United States. The second value is responsiveness, because each of our allies and partners has unique security challenges. Many of them are on varying technological levels. And so we must be responsive to their unique requirements and needs if we are to remain their partner of choice. The third value, and this one is most important, and that's the integrity of the process. One of the things that I take pride in is when I talk to ministers of defense from all over the world, I can tell them without a hint of hesitation that when you do business with the United States, the books are always open for inspection, okay? So if you want to know where your money's going, the money that you paid us for goods and services, we'll open the books for you anytime and show you where all of the money is going and where it is. There's no under the table payments, there's no back channel deals, and we're very proud of that. And I think once again, that distinguishes us from our strategic competitors. And finally, it is the commitment to a long-term relationship past the point of sale. And we have numerous historical examples of this. I mean, we literally rebuilt the armies of Western Europe, including the German army, in order to demonstrate our long-term commitment to a relationship with Western Europe. Similarly, in the Asia-Pacific region, we rebuilt the Japanese self-defense forces, okay, in order to become a viable ally in Northeast Asia. And we created from whole cloth the Korean armed forces in order to serve our joint and collective and allied interest in building their capabilities. So we are committed to long-term relationships past the point of sale, and that distinguishes us from our strategic competitors as well. So these four values, if you don't remember anything else I talk about today, these four values frame how we do business and distinguishes us from our strategic competitors, okay? So I'll tell you, excuse me, security cooperation for us is not about the sale, it's about that long-term relationship. So what differentiates you as a FAO, or all of our FAOs, from your Russian and Chinese attaché counterparts? What makes you special as a security cooperations officer? And what makes a FAO special as an attaché? It's that you represent a country that takes this unique approach to engaging with foreign partners. And I know many of you out there on active duty and many of our FAOs who have since retired have numerous experiences where you were dealing with your Russian counterpart or your Chinese counterpart, and you've all had a chance to give some thought to, okay, these guys are my competitors, what distinguishes me from them? Now, as FAOs, we're all practitioners of this uniquely American approach to security cooperation, okay? And the extent to which it is successful rests on our shoulders. Now, I hear a lot about what the Russians are doing and the Chinese are doing, okay? But I'm not interested in what my competitors do, and I'm not playing their game. We're playing our own game here. And the success of our approach rests on the shoulders of foreign area officers. And that's not hyperbole, that's simply a fact. Now, one of the things that we need is, in order to be successful, you got to understand your history. And FAOs themselves and the culture and history of the political military officer goes back almost to the foundings of the Republic. Now, as you know, the FAO designation only came about around 1972, but there were notable figures throughout the history of the US Armed Forces that could be considered FAOs in their own right and help to establish our uniquely American approach to security cooperation. One of my favorites is Colonel Charles Young. Colonel Charles Young was the third African-American graduate of the US Military Academy. He overcame stifling inequality to become not only one of the first military attachés the United States had to both Haiti and to Liberia, but he was also the superintendent of the National Park Service. And a lot of people don't know, the reason that park rangers wear peaked caps is because the first park rangers were buffalo soldiers, okay, at the turn of the century. And the peaked cap you see the US Park Service wear is a copy of a US cavalry hat at the turn of the century. So Colonel Young, in addition to being at one point the highest ranking African-American in the US Army, served several tours as an attaché in both Liberia and in Haiti. And in fact, he contracted malaria on an intelligence gathering mission in the upcountry in Nigeria, was brought back to the United States and died. But his long and distinguished career made him a popular figure at his time. And in fact, his obituary ran in the New York Times. So one attaché. I heard a little bit about, not surprisingly, Lawrence of Arabia is the #1 favorite movie of all FAOs. I'm not the only one that rode on a camel in Wadi Rum and sang, I broke the bank in Monte Carlo. I think half the FAOs I know, especially Middle East FAOs, had to go to Wadi Rum, sit on a camel and sing, I'm the man who broke the bank in Monte Carlo, because they saw Lawrence of Arabia. But we have a lot of American service members that were famous FAOs as well. And at DSCA, every week at our staff meeting, we profile a different foreign area officer or predecessor to foreign area officers. So we talk about people like Colonel Gail Halverson, who became known as the candy bomber during the Berlin airlift of 1948. You know, and his humanitarian actions became the precursor for DoD foreign humanitarian assistance to civilian populations. We talk about the man who our visitor center is named after, Lieutenant General George Marion Signius, who served as the first director of what became the Defense Security Cooperation Agency. He was a special assistant to Kissinger at the Paris peace talks, and later became president of the Citadel. And served in several very important FAO-like assignments during the course of his career. So these are people many of you haven't heard of, and of course there's General Vernon Walters, and there are many, many others that if you're a FAO and you don't know who these guys are, you need to understand what they did and how they did it, and how Vernon Walters used to have contests, linguistic contests with people, where they tell jokes and give speeches in various languages until your ability petered out, and the guy who was left standing at the end won, okay? And Walters, who spoke 5 or 6 languages, ended up being that guy. We stand on the shoulders of giants, and where we are today is a result of the efforts of those FAOs that came before us. So the first step to being successful in anything is understanding the fundamental nature of our approach, the historical nature of our approach, and its advantages so that we may continue to be successful. So when we engage with partners, the focus is not on what they want to buy. The focus is on what they want to do. Because if you ask somebody about what they want to do, you can lay out a full range of options that not only satisfy their operational requirements, but take into account their budgetary realities and institutional capacity. You can have a year-long discussion on what someone wants to buy and never really get to the heart of what will serve their security interest and ours. The United States meets partners where they are and works with them to get them where they want to be. Excuse me. So, excuse me, I'm very sorry. The US solutions that we provide, and we do provide solutions, Anwar Sadat famously said, many countries can provide you with weapons. Only the United States can provide you with a solution. And one of the reasons countries come to the United States is because they're looking for a solution and not just weapons. US solutions address not only material and related training, but they also address education, strategy, logistics, planning, doctrine, and institutional support. So we take this full spectrum approach to solving problems and resolving security issues for our partners, okay? And this is, and I keep stressing this, this is a key differentiator that differentiates us from our Russian and Chinese competitors and why people still come to the United States for their security needs. We not only train our partners how to operate the equipment, we'll teach them how to maintain it, but we also teach fiscal responsibility and fiscal accountability. Because if you don't pay the mechanics that fix your aircraft, it doesn't matter how advanced they are, they're not going to fix the aircraft if you don't pay them. And so we recognize that you need to take a full spectrum approach to sustain and establish an enduring military capability over time. I'll give you an example of that. I was in Kenya not too long ago before COVID-19 started, and the Kenyans are flying 40-year-old F-4 fighters, okay? Not F-4, I'm sorry, F-5 fighters. And those fighters take off and land next to 3-year-old Chinese helicopters that don't fly, okay? So you gotta ask, so what's the difference between those 40-year-old US fighters and those 3-year-old Chinese helicopters? And the answer is obvious. In Kenya, we made an investment developing a culture of maintenance excellence, which is why 40-year-old US fighters continue to fly until Chinese helicopters don't, okay? Now, everyone knows that we make the best equipment in the world, and make no mistake, we do, okay? And the equipment is built to last. And while our allies and partners know our equipment is the best in the world, they continue to seek ways to increase the return on investment and bolster their defense industries. And this is a new emerging trend, okay? So a lot of our allies are talking to us about co-production and co-development. Our allies and partners understand the value of defense cooperation, but also see economic benefits in having their own strong defense industrial base. And this is something new. They don't just want our equipment now, but they're interested in sharing technologies and other things. And as such, we're seeing an increase in international competitions where allies are asking the United States not only to provide equipment, but to provide technology and manufacturing expertise as well. Now, we can decry this or scream about this, or we can continue to improve our flexibility, our responsiveness, and our innovativeness as we approach these international competitions so that we remain competitive with our competitors who are also looking for ways to enhance not only the security interest of our allies and partners, but their economic interest as well. And we will always be faced with this inherent tension between protecting our own defense industrial base, protecting our technological edge, and sharing technologies and production techniques with our allies and partners, okay? There's always going to be a cost-benefit analysis. But if we understand that, we can adjust our mental paradigms so that we can rapidly assess the cost-benefit analysis and move forward, okay? Now, I'll tell you something, and people often tell me, well, you know, the Chinese and Russians, they can move faster and their stuff is cheaper. And look, I'm aware of all the advantages that the Chinese and the Russians have. Their systems are reflective of the authoritarian governmental systems in both of those countries, okay? But we are not going to win this competition by trying to out-Chinese the Chinese and out-Russian the Russians, okay? Which some people have suggested. Well, sir, why don't we just do things the way they do? Because that's not who we are. Then though it may be attractive to adopt your opponent's methods in an effort to replicate what you perceive to be their strengths, that's not how we're going to win. We're going to win by remaining true to our values and continuing to demonstrate that the uniquely American approach is not only a willingness, but an ability to respond to partners' unique, comprehensive requirements without sacrificing our core values. And I tell you what, I've been able to demonstrate over my tenure in DSCA how values are not a hindrance to expanding US presence and US market share. And in fact, they are an advantage, okay? And we need to get out of our head that somehow adhering to our core values somehow disadvantages us in the global market. It does not. And we have evidence, as we've seen, a 16% increase over 3 years in US arms sales overseas, even though we are facing almost ruthless competition from the Russians and the Chinese. So a couple of things have happened in the last couple of years I'm very proud of, and I wanted to share those with you in the last few minutes before I stop and offer you guys a chance to ask questions. So since 2017, we have been leading an effort to reform security cooperation and reform foreign military sales. In fact, when I took this job, Secretary Mattis put his arm around me and he said, I have 2 missions for you. And I said, yes, sir. And he said, first mission is strengthen our alliances and partnerships. I said, Roger, sir, I can do that. He said, the second mission is fix FMS. And I kind of looked at him, and then he looked at me, he said, I know what you're thinking. And I said, what's that, sir? He said, you're thinking good luck with that. And I said, yes, sir, that's exactly what I'm thinking. And then we had a good laugh, and then he stopped laughing and looked at me and said, no, seriously, I want you to fix FMS. And so we've been heading a reform effort over the last few years to help streamline FMS and make it more efficient and effective. And there was room for improvement, and we've done that. So what have we done so far? We've reduced FMS costs. We've reduced our price point by lowering admin surcharge rates, improving funding flexibility. We've come up with some unique financial instruments that allow some of our partners that are having of limited economic means to pay for US equipment at no fiduciary risk to the United States, okay? We've increased support to non-program of record requests. What that means is we've increased funding and support to creating unique variants of weapon systems and equipment that fit the unique needs of our allies and partners. And two things that I'm very, very proud of. Number one is we've established the Defense Security Cooperation University, okay? Very proud of that. This is the first defense university since 1991, the establishment of the Defense Acquisition University. So you cannot have a career, and the second related to that is we've established a GS civilian career field for security cooperation. When I got here, I asked if we had one and everybody told me no. And I said, you gotta be kidding me. So we have this $55 billion a year business and we're doing it with amateurs? And the answer came back, yes. And we also didn't know, honestly, we didn't know how many people around the world in DOD did security cooperation. So now we know that it's about 20,000, and now we have a career field and a university to provide the underlying foundation for that career field to start out with, to provide certification at the accession level, the mid-career level, and the capstone level for all security cooperation specialists in a number of career fields. And so we're very, very proud of that. Okay, a couple of other things we've done that I'm very proud of. We prioritized institutional capacity building, okay? What exactly does that mean? Well, we tend to forget the underlying design premise of all US equipment. It is that it is sustained and maintained by functioning institutions, okay? Now we have the blessing to wish this away because all of our institutions function. And what do I mean by that? Administration, finance, logistics, sustainment. All of these are functioning institutions in the United States. And so we can afford to have an underlying design premise that all of these institutions will to maintain the equipment. Many of our partners don't have that luxury. So if you don't prioritize training, education, strategic development, administrative management, financial management at the same level that you prioritize equipment provisioning, you are bound to fail. You might as well shred that money and flush it down the toilet. Absolutely. Because the equipment will end up in an elephant's graveyard somewhere outside of Taji or some of the other ones that we are all familiar with. Okay? Prioritize institutional capacity building. Technology systems to streamline activities. When I got here, I asked to see what are the sales trends for twin engine air superiority fighters over the last 10 years, who's been buying them and who do we project is going to buy them? And everybody looked at me like I had horns growing out of my head. And what I found out was we didn't have a technology infrastructure that allowed us to pull that kind of data. And oh, by the way, what have the Russians been selling and what have the Chinese been selling? Nobody could tell me that. So we've worked on information technology systems to streamline these activities and improve our ability to conduct data pulls to give us key information we need to compete, okay? And finally, in addition to establishing DSCU, we've very rapidly been able to move the majority of our curriculum online and to tie our curriculum in with the curriculum of not only the Defense Acquisition University, but also the Defense Intelligence University, as well as the attaché course, JMAS. So we finally have a synergy now between JMAS, Defense Acquisition University, and the Defense Security Cooperation University to provide a holistic training for our FAOs, our SCOs, and our attachés to ensure that each of them is exposed to what the others do to further improve the integration Very quickly, we can talk a little bit about technology. As I said, I see one of the big challenges that we will face in the future is our ability to protect our technology, to maintain our technological edge, while simultaneously providing opportunities for collaboration with our allies and partners. And we're making great strides. The Defense Technology Security Agency, under the leadership of Ms. Heidi Grant, who many of you know, Heidi and I have been able to work together to change the culture of technology vetting from one of an overwhelming presumption of denial, okay? In other words, no, 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 to one where we may more rapidly assess the cost and benefits of technology proliferation and collaboration with our allies and partners. So we continue to work on that with Defense Technology Security Agency. Similarly, we've started working on and the importance of cyber defense. But one of the things we've been working is, so we know how to sell a tank, a plane, a ship. How do you commoditize and package cyber defensive and offensive capabilities? How do you do that in a manner that accommodates the various technological levels of our allies and partners? And so we've been working with many of the traditional leaders in this field to determine the best way to provide cyber security. And finally, we also see space as integral to the future of security cooperation. And we started having discussions on how we can shape how we provide security assistance and security cooperation for space. And oh, by the way, that's going to open up a whole new area of education and orientation for our FAOs and SCOs. Because now when you're a FAO and a SCO, a security cooperations officer, you're going to have to understand cyber, IT, space, crypto, communications, all these things that previously FAOs didn't necessarily need to understand. All of this speaks to the fact that I'm very cognizant that we are no longer, and I talk about this all the time, we're no longer building networks only in the physical world in the Westphalian sense, alliances between countries. Alliances, we're building networks, okay? And just as alliances are defined by the strongest member of that alliance, okay? Networks are defined by the weakest node in the network. So the challenge for us as security cooperators and FAOs is, how do you create a multinational network that simultaneously provides for a defensive capability, not only for the strongest partners, but for the weakest partners, the weakest nodes in that network. And this is why issues such as what we've seen in Turkey with the S-400, this is why these are so important. The S-400's kinetic abilities are irrelevant to this argument. I'm not saying that that we should completely disregard them, but the missiles in this case are the least of our worries. The real threat of S-400 is that it is an alien node in our network, sucking in information from a network of from an alliance network that could possibly act to our detriment. And so we have to figure out, how do we create these networks and defend these networks when our partners are not only buying from us, but from others as well? No answers here, just some of the challenges we have to look at. So I'm going to stop there, and in conclusion, I want to talk a little bit about 30 years, more than 30 years, I've been a FAO. I've seen a huge evolution in where we've been in security cooperation. There were times where we had to fight, quite frankly, to get people to pay attention to security cooperation and to what FAOs do. That's not the case anymore. And I really believe that we've seen a renewed emphasis on what FAOs do. And as evidence of that, we have 5 FAO generals. I never thought in a zillion years, and admirals, I should say. I never thought in a zillion years there'd be any more than maybe 2 FAO generals at any given time, one in Moscow and one in Beijing. I never dreamed in a million years there would be a FAO lieutenant general, and I certainly didn't think it would be me, okay? So I think that these are all evidence of the emphasis that's been placed on FAOs. A lot of changes in the air, many of you have heard of. I will tell you that I've been briefed on many of the changes that are being proposed to FAO management in the session. I am in complete agreement with moving forward in support of these changes. The world is evolving and our profession must evolve to keep up with it. And I can talk about that if you'd like. At the end of the day, it has been my pride and honor to be the senior FAO. And many of you guys know, I tell you this all the time, every morning I've woken up since I was promoted to a general officer, I prayed the Alan Shepard prayer, okay? Many of you know Alan Shepard was our first astronaut, and they asked him before he went up, they said, Commander Shepard, do you go to church? Yeah. And they said, do you pray? And he said, yeah. They said, well, Commander Shepard, what do you pray? And he told them, I pray, please, God, don't let me mess this up. And so every day I prayed, please, God, don't let me mess this up. Because if I mess this up, they'll never let another FAO do it. And I worked hard to make sure that everyone could understand the breadth and the depth of the potential of FAO contributions, particularly at the strategic level. So I'm going off now, and that's okay. I'm gonna go off fishing. At the end of the day, folks, the strength of our FAO Corps and our FAO family is in its collaboration, is in taking care of each other. It's in associations like the FAO Association and our informal associations all around. I've talked to many groups, the 48 Bravos and many groups of FAOs, the Navy FAO Council of Captains. And at the end of the day, our strength lies in our ability to continue to collaborate, to have fellowship, and to help each other and to move forward the profession. Never forget that, okay? Never leave our destiny completely in the hands of others, because nobody understands this better than you do. And the association plays a significant role in this as well, okay? Teddy Roosevelt said, the most important single ingredient in the formula for success is knowing how to get along with people. And folks, at the end of the day, all these weapons, all these systems, they all serve as the basis for a human relationship. And nothing will ever supersede that as the glue that holds together alliances and partnerships. Last time I looked, F-16s do not answer the phone in time of crisis, but F-16 pilots do. So anyway, I'm gonna stop there. It's been an honor and a pleasure to talk to you guys today, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, General. That was a really awesome opening to this discussion. There's several questions that have been typed in, as well as folks who want to answer questions. I'm going to go in order. The first question we got was from Mark Rasmussen, who says he knows you. His question is, given that FAOs exist on the edge of policy and politics, and in light of the political reaction to Lieutenant Colonel Vindemans testifying before Congress, what advice do you have for all FAOs in handling situations that straddle those two worlds, the official policy and implementation of it?
Okay, no, that's a very good question. And thanks, Mark, for that question. I can see you there. How you doing? Okay, good. The answer to the question is this. If you guys had just heard me, I talked about the importance of values. Now, FAOs are always going to be at that gray area nexus of intelligence, business, diplomacy, policy, and politics. That is where we operate. So you have to have a strong foundation of where your own value system is, where your own judgment system is as we move forward. When you operate consistently in a gray area like that, you will be challenged from time to time as to what is the right thing to do. And when you look to your left and right, you will be left to your own devices to decide what is right and what should I do. So the answer to the question, Mark, is you need to develop a strong foundation and a strong sense of what is right and wrong and what are our values. You need to remember your oath. Okay, on my desk, I have under the glass, I have two pieces of paper. The first one is Title 10, Section 382, the duties of the Director of the Defense Security Cooperation Agency as directed by the Congress. The second one is the officer's oath of office. I do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution against all. That's on my desk. Let that be your guide. Let your conscience be your guide. And each of you as FAOs, if you're going to be successful, have to have that strong foundation. Because the question of your being challenged is not a matter of if, it is a matter of when. And I'll stop there.
Hey, sir, I just wanted to tell you thank you for that. I actually had to address that with my staff of officers in the market DIA before I retired. So I appreciate your support on that.
Thanks, gentlemen. The next question is going to come from Andre Louise Kuhner, who is voicing in.
Good morning, sir. First of all, thank you very much for that inspirational speech and that all the awesome career advice today and other times I've listened to you speak as well. I'm a 48 Juliet, a new 48 Juliet. I'm currently attending grad school here in DC at George Washington University. I'm tentatively scheduled to start IRT next summer in Cameroon, probably opting for the 3-month IRT due to career timelines, the newly approved. Then I'll be serving tentatively as the OSC chief. How can I maximize my time now in developing myself in the field of security cooperation?
Okay, that's a very good question. And I will tell you, going back to one of the last things I said, obviously there are academic preparations that you can pursue, but I would tell you, you're in Washington, D.C., you have some time. I would get around and meet everybody who's ever had anything to do with Cameroon, okay? Including Cameroonian restaurants up in Hayes Adams, or, I mean, there are a number of opportunities here for you to gain an on the ground grassroots for the country you're going to. I'd meet my State Department counterparts. I'd meet my USAID counterparts. I'd meet other counterparts around town, and I'd meet the people who are going to be instrumental to your success as a security cooperations officer in Cameroon. And I will tell you that as you're starting out on your FAO career, you're going to meet people, for example, in the State Africa Bureau that are starting out. It's good to get them to know them now, because trust me, you will see them again as you all grow up together. I grew up with many of the people in the China community. When I was a captain in grad school at Harvard, they were graduate students and presidential fellows, and we all knew each other. We all grew up together, okay? And in certain cases, I ended up working for them. So people, get to know the people, get to know the problem, and I'll stop there. Good luck to you, by the way.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. The next question is going to come from Bob McKenna. Bob, you there?
Good afternoon, sir. Thank you for this engaging discussion. So my question kind of goes with some of the things you've talked about and with education. Do we as a community need to look at the options we are providing for, you know, advanced civil schooling for foreign area officers, given the kind of the more business breadth of many of the things that you talked about today in terms of how we build these relationships over time, and perhaps a little bit more diversity than just the, I think AR 600-3 just calls it an advanced regionally focused degree.
No, the answer to your question is absolutely. I remember when I was in grad school, I had, you know, I laid out this course schedule that had all these weighty courses on it on foreign policy and these types of things. And I remember many of you may know the name Graham Allison. Well, Graham Allison at the Kennedy School was my academic advisor. And he said, you don't have any economics courses, you don't have any business courses. And, you know, I was a young FAO captain, fresh out of company. I don't need, you know, business economics, you know, I'm a policy guy. And he looked at me with that bemused look that old people look at young people. And he told me it's always about the money. And when they tell you it's not about the money, they're lying. It's really about the money. And so I ended up taking those business and economic courses, courses. And I tell you, as a China FAO, if you don't understand the nexus and the tension between our economic relationship with China and our security relationship, you are not going to be successful. So the answer to your question is yes. I think there must be increasingly some exposure and some business/economic education integrated into the curriculum of our FAO training programs. As you know, we've been experimenting with different formulas. We now have the programs at GW for FAOs, but I absolutely think, and if your curriculum doesn't lend itself or is not flexible enough, I urge all of our FAOs to self-educate on a lot of great books out there, you know, the book on MBAs and on business practices, because the complementary relationship between business and security, those two are inextricably linked. And if you want to fully understand one, you must study the other. And I'll stop there.
All right. Thank you very much, sir.
All right, the next question is coming from Dave Shin. His question is, what role do the services have in DSCA's efforts to establish long-term relationships with allies and partners once the ally or partner shows serious interest in acquiring a U.S. system? In other words, are the U.S. military services nested in DSCA's strategy to strengthen alliances and partnerships?
The short answer to your question is yes. And I like to describe being the director of DSCA as not being, I am not a chief executive officer, okay? In the sense that what we call the implementing agencies, the service agencies don't work for me, okay? I operate far more as a chairman of the board. In fact, I'm the chairman of the Security Cooperation Enterprise Group, which is the panel of Army, Navy, Air Force, and we brought in Coast Guard now, heads of the implementing agencies. And by implementing agencies, I mean U.S. Army Security Assistance Command, Air Force Security Assistance Command, Navy International Programs, at both the secretariat levels, SAF-IA, DASADEC, and the Deputy Undersecretary of the Navy, and at the implementing agency, and that includes the Missile Defense Agency as well as the Army, Navy, and Air Force. So I operate as a chairman of the board. The implementing agencies, as their name describes, the services have responsibility for execution. And the short answer to your question is both in terms of service strategies as well as practical execution. The services are synced up with the SCA as we move forward to promote LOE2, strengthening alliances and attracting new partnerships. So for example, as we work with the Indian Armed Forces, and our relationship with India has just exploded in the last couple of years, the Army, Navy, and Air Force in providing defense articles and services to the Indian Armed Forces, and working by, with, and through, and together with DSCA. So yes, I'm a chairman of the board, and all of them are nested, synchronized, and vested in this effort.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Next question is going to be called in from Paul Sotomayor. Paul, you're up.
Hey, Paul, you out there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
There we go.
I can hear you.
Excellent. Hey, sir, thank you for the opportunity listening on your dialogue and career advice for both FAOs in and out of uniform. Greatly appreciated. From my lens here in Tampa, I'm witnessing security cooperation from a trans-regional perspective across GCCs, varying different campaign plans and LOEs, which bring a unique challenge in itself. Well, my question is, what advice do you have for these security cooperation experts seeing these type of trans-regional opportunities in the world of security cooperation? Over.
So what type of advice do I have? That's a great question. It obviously we could schedule another session just to talk about that. But I think the best advice I could offer, some of which I've already touched upon, is be sensitive to the rapid evolution of what we're doing. So security cooperation is evolving at light speed. And if you do not, and if you do not understand, for example, the evolution of our approach as a nation towards providing unmanned aerial vehicles, making those available to allies and partners. The rapid growth of our competitors rapidly replicating and putting on the market exact copies of unmanned aerial vehicles that we had. So things are evolving at light speed. And even during my 3-year tenure here, I've seen a rapid evolution of the demands, the requirements, the requests from the field, and the requests from our allies and partners. So number one, you have to show agility and flexibility right off the bat. You have to be responsive, very rapidly responsive to changing situations and changing needs. I'll give you an example. I got word at a cocktail party here in Washington that a certain country wanted to move away from their traditional dependence on one of our strategic competitors and was interested in moving towards the United States. This was just an anecdotal conversation. I thought it was worthwhile to follow up. So I flew to that country and I had meetings with their leadership. And what I found out was that particular individual was very accurately representing the views of that country. And within 2 weeks, I had put together an interagency team to fly back to that country to have fulsome discussions with them on where they wanted to go and what they wanted to do, to go back to my presentation. So you have to be responsive, you have to be agile, you have to be flexible, and you have to understand that the nature of security cooperation is rapidly evolving. I talked a little bit about this issue of the importance of cyber. And of course, everybody keeps saying how important cyber is. We have to do more than that. We have to figure out how to, for want of a more elegant phrase, how to commoditize, how to package cyber so that it is relevant and applicable to allies that range from, near peer equal technological sophistication of the United States to something less than that, okay? We have to do that. Another example is when I talk about agility and flexibility, I was having dinner, my brother-in-law is a .com, he's one of these .com startup guys, wears flannel shirts and makes a ton of money out in Silicon Valley. And we were having discussions about upgrading equipment. And, I was explaining to him the current process of how we upgrade US equipment. We have to send technicians over and everybody has to have a security clearance, and we take over big suitcases full of circuit boards and we have to swap them out and upload programs. And so my brother-in-law started laughing at me. He said, you know how Tesla upgrades software? I said, no. He says, Tesla sends out a program over the cloud, okay? An encrypted program that's unencrypted. Of course, Teslas have the software to decrypt the program, upload the program, and that's how they upload their software. And my mind started racing. And I started trying to think, how the heck would we do that? I mean, it's okay for Tesla, but how the heck would the US government do that? So in answer to your question, agility, we have to abandon mental rigidity. Some of you have seen, I've talked a little bit about, I think this whole concept of generational weapons, thinking in terms of generations, that has to go away, okay? Some of it is pure marketing, to be honest, okay? But we have to stop thinking in bins, okay? So anyway, agility, mental flexibility, and the ability to adapt our systems and procedures to meet the emerging needs of allies and partners. And I'll stop there.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate the insight.
That was great, sir. The next question is coming from Master Gunnery Sergeant Plummer in the Marine Corps. He asks, how do you see the future of enlisted FAOs? Do you see us taking on FAO duties as designed for traditional FAOs or staying at the tactical level?
Thank you. The first thing I'll say about that, if you want to know how I feel about NCO FAOs and NCOs and security cooperation, many of you know I brought on the first ever senior enlisted leader for the Defense Security Cooperation Agency and the Security Cooperation Enterprise. I picked a Marine, Sergeant Major Biago, formerly Command Sergeant Major of the 3rd Marine Division in Okinawa, and Sergeant Major Santiago and I, over the past 3 years, have worked on increasing the number of NCOs that work in security cooperation and working in conjunction with DIA, working on and talking about increasing the number of NCOs in our embassy offices overseas writ large. So I know that Sergeant Major Santiago about 6 months ago held the first NCO summit for senior non-commissioned officers that have equities in security cooperation, FAO or FAO-like duties. So for example, the Sergeant Major from G35 in the Army, the senior enlisted advisor from the Marine organization, the Marine Security Cooperation Organization down south of us. He brought all those senior NCOs together to assess the interest and the willingness of the services to release more NCOs. I think that regrettably, if you ask me, one of my regrets is we didn't move further along, but I think we made a great deal of progress in bringing more NCOs into security cooperation, security assistance. They may not have a formal FAO program similar to the officer FAO program, but as I see it, the first step is in expanding the NCOs involved in, for example, attaché work or security cooperation. And from there, once we demonstrate the value of increasing NCO representation, we can talk about more formal programs. I don't think you can put the cart before the horse, okay? And there's still a lot of people, frankly, and regrettably, that are skeptical about the role of NCOs in this, but I'm not one of those people, okay? I think there should be NCO FAOs. I've made this very clear, and Sergeant Major Sandy, the position of senior enlisted advisor for the enterprise will continue after I'm gone. Sergeant Major Santiago is looking at a number of opportunities, but we've already advertised for his position, and the fight will continue for NCOs and FAO. Over.
That's great, and it kind of leads into our next question from Thomas Toyama about reserves. So he asks, have you or a FAO proponent had the chance to review the utility of reserve FAOs? Do you see opportunities to utilize reserve FAO Corps better, given that we have officers serving around the world as civilians for our Fortune 100 companies with unique perspectives?
I will tell you, as he may know, there's been reserve FAOs for quite some time. The issue is not whether or not there's a reserve FAO program. The issue is utilization. And I don't want to speak for the services. I don't want to speak for the other services with respect to whether or not the programs would be enhanced. But I would tell you that when I was DAT in Beijing and also Defense Attaché in Cairo, I was able to host reserve FAOs for extended periods of time. They did excellent work. And I think we should continue and expand both the programs and the opportunities. I would add to that, I'm a big believer, and I'm in discussions with the National Guard Bureau about expanding the bilateral affairs officer program. For example, I'm willing to create positions in DSCA for returning bilateral affairs officers. So instead of that expertise that but for those of you that don't know, bilateral affairs officers are those officers assigned by the National Guard Bureau to our embassies overseas to oversee those countries that have state partnership programs. Okay, and so what I've done is I've discussed with General Langell and General Hokanson in the SCA for returning bilateral affairs officers so that we can utilize that expertise in DSCA, refine and improve those officers' skill sets to return overseas and do what they do, very critical and important role for both the Reserve FAO program, but also for the reserve component's role in security cooperation writ large. Next question.
Thanks for that, General. We are hitting noon right now. I've been told by your exec that you have a hard stop at noon, sir. So we do have a slew of other questions, but I can pass those to your exec so you can see what the other questions people were going to ask. For those that were in the queue, I'm sorry we didn't have time to get to you today, but no doubt this was still a valuable hour of everybody's life. Lieutenant General Hooper, this was awesome. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day for us. You had 175 participants here today listening to you, and every minute.
Well, thank you very much, and to everyone out there, as I said, it's been the honor of my life to serve as a senior foreign area officer. I am an Army FAO. I tell people that all the time, and that's how I introduce myself. I'm going off into retirement, and that's okay. I've had a great run. I've had a blessed career. I hope I've proven to everyone in the leadership what FAOs can do. And I leave the rest, for those of you on active duty, I leave the rest to you. For those of you guys in the association, I'm looking to become more active. So I want to make sure that I'm participating in the association because I may be retiring, but I will always be a FAO. So thanks, guys. Please stay safe and healthy out there. And thanks for the opportunity to speak with you. Take care.